Hello, and welcome to the Cavness HR Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cavness. Our guest today is Fabian Schwartz. Fabian, are you ready to be great today?
Yes, ready.
Fabian has 20 years of experience as a Scrum. He has worked in Europe, Australia, and the Americas, and impressively has taught more than 30,000 people in Scrum. He has worked with companies of any size, from startups to Fortune 100 companies. And he's a pioneer of Scrum outside technology, and he's a co-creator of the Scrum in the hardware guide. He is the only certified Scrum trainer in the country of Colombia. He has worked directly with Dr. Jeff Sutherland, co-creator of Scrum. He's a great public speaker. And Fabian, you're just doing a lot of great things. And thank you very much for being here today with us.
Yeah, thanks, Jason, for having me.
So Fabian, what is Scrum?
Okay, so Scrum as a framework, would probably say a management framework, a way of working that helps you to dramatically increase your productivity.
So why is Scrum important to software developers or just in people in general?
Okay, I would say today it's probably not only important to software development, but almost to any business. Reason being is that in today's business world, everything is changing so fast that you need a way of working that allows you to adapt also fast to that change, which many people call agile, being agile. And Scrum is one of the best ways I've found to become agile.
So how does one become a Scrum person? Is that a career development plan, or how does that work? You have to be a software developer first and product management, or how does that work?
Okay, yeah. So, well, Scrum initially was used a lot in software development. So there's a lot of relation with software development. But again, I think today almost everybody can benefit from Scrum. It's a very lightweight technique. It's very easy to understand. So you can take a short training or read a book or something, and I think you have a pretty good idea how Scrum works. The only challenges, or the big challenge, is then to implement it. So again, it's easy to understand, but it needs a lot of discipline to implement, and that's where people usually fail.
So Fab, you've done Scrum with large corporations and startups. When should a startup start thinking about bringing on a person to do Scrum?
So I think for startups, it's really important to be agile very early on, because especially like big companies have a lot of money and they can survive several failures, expensive failures, while startups need to learn very fast. So they need to fail fast and cheap to adjust and adapt their strategy. So I think startups should think from the beginning, like when I have 3, 4, 5 people, they should start doing Scrum in order to be able to learn fast, adapt fast, and change fast.
So if a startup's working on an MVP, they should be doing the Scrum process as early as building the MVP then?
Yeah, actually Scrum is really good to get it to an MVP and also then to change your MVP. So the whole concept of lean startup, MVP, and Scrum works really good together.
So does Scrum help you with your technical debt? I know a lot of companies talk about they have a lot of technical debt. Does Scrum help to reduce your technical debt?
Okay, yeah, not by default. So you have to do it in a good way. But the idea is that like Scrum works in iterations. Okay, so that in Scrum we call it a sprint. So the idea is that in every sprint you dedicate a percentage of your iteration, a percentage of the time of your sprint to reducing technical debt. So like first of all, you obviously try to not get more technical debt, you try to reduce it. And also the team should develop a high quality product, like from the beginning on. Like so earlier you start using Scrum, the less technical debt you will probably have.
So Fabian, how did you become interested in being involved in Scrum?
Myself. So I was working in traditional project management a very long time in the financial service industry in Germany. With all the problems, projects being late, being more expensive, don't deliver what they promised. I even was head of a PMO, and then in around 2007, a group of entrepreneurs wanted to develop a car sharing company we started. They asked me if I want to join them to manage that project. Basically, I did that in my traditional way. So we were working a year without having real results. And then we were thinking switching to Scrum. We did that. It was successful, but I have to say in the beginning, I actually rejected it. I was thinking, well, it's just luck. Can't be that such a lightweight way of working is superior to such a sophisticated way I was used to. So it took me a couple of attempts, but after some years seeing continuously good results, I finally converted, and here I am now with Scrum.
You've been doing Scrum for a while. From your point of view, what characteristics makes a person a good Scrum person? They have to be detail oriented, big vision.
Okay, so in Scrum, we have different roles, and the profile probably depends a little bit on what role you're looking for. So we have one role which is called the product owner in Scrum. It's basically the person that has the vision for the product and that tells us where we're going, what are we doing, and on what priority. So this is, maybe imagine here Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos kind of person. Then we have the team, the development team. So they're a cross-functional, self-organized team that decide how they're going to build that vision. So here you want obviously a person with good skills, but I think what we need is T-shaped people. So not just a specialist in one area. We need a person that is good in one area, but that also has general knowledge about the other areas in order to help, for example, someone when he becomes a bottleneck, or also to have something else to do while he has idle time. And the third role is the Scrum Master, which is, I would say, well, many say it's the servant leader of the Scrum team. So I don't know, think of Jesus Christ for the Scrum team, trying to get the team better all the time.
So let's suppose you have a startup and the startup founder is building a product and they're trying to convince this person to use Scrum, but the startup founder like, no, I don't want to use Scrum. We got to do something fast as possible. Scrum is a waste of our time. How do you convince this startup founder, no, you need to invest the time in Scrum to build a better product?
Okay, that's a pretty good question, because you can't, I think there's first of all no one way to answer that. The different but possibilities you have. Well, we try usually when we have reluctant people and we ask them, okay, let us try an experiment. Like, give us a small group, let's try an experiment. If it doesn't work, well, just keep doing what you're doing. But we found if we can get them at least to do an experiment, these pilot teams usually have really good results. Around 400% improvement in produced value is not uncommon. So when you have this success is contagious. So one way is just tell them, well, here's statistics, here's another case study. But if you can get them to do an experiment and show them inside their company results, that's when it becomes really powerful.
Do you need a college degree to be a Scrum person?
No. Obviously, you need understanding in your domain, what you're doing. So if you work in oil and gas, you should understand oil and gas. If you work in software, you should understand software. Probably some basic business terms, but again, Scrum is really easy to understand. So as of now, Scrum has 11 elements. Very lightweight. The current Scrum guide has only 16 pages. So it's easy to understand, but what you do need if you want to do it good is discipline. It takes a lot of discipline to actually apply these few rules.
So say someone's in college right now or looking for a career change, like, I'm interested in Scrum. What advice do you have them to start to become a Scrum person, start a career in Scrum?
Okay. Well, there are two ways that are interesting. One is if you wanna have a career in Scrum, well, then you have to probably practice Scrum, and maybe you become a Scrum master. Or nowadays everybody's an Agile coach, so you become an Agile coach. But you need a lot of practice to get there. So I see Scrum more as a way of doing things. Obviously, my business is helping people with Scrum, but I think Scrum should be the way you work to achieve what you want to achieve. So if you want to create a great app, well, you can use Scrum to produce more value faster. if you drill oil wells, well, you can use Scrum to do that better and faster. So I think you should use Scrum to achieve what you want to achieve. So that's probably my way of thinking about that.
Fabian, you have a book coming out too, correct?
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about your book a little bit. Is this the first book you've written, or you've written some before?
It's the first book I've written. The reason I've written that is, so the Scrum guide tells you what you should do, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. And I think that's where our clients usually ask us, and where they have problems and challenges. So we wanted a short, comprehensive book, right? We didn't want to extend ourselves and become really technical. We wanted a short, easy to understand book that helps you on day one to implement Scrum.
So what's the demographic for the book? Is it for people new to Scrum, people who've done Scrum before, or product owners, or something totally different?
Okay, so I think every Scrum role would benefit from that, but it's people that are more new to Scrum, that are in the beginning stage. So in Scrum implementation, we use a lot these martial arts concept, shuhari. I don't know if you've heard about that. So in the shu stage, you are basically a practitioner. You practice the rules. So this book is written for people in the shu stage.
So Fabian, did you publish the book yourself, or a publishing agency pushed it out for you?
We have a publishing agency publishing that. It's coming out in March. So yeah.
And it's going to be a worldwide release, or just in Colombia and the United States?
We started in the United States, and then we will roll out to all Latin America. So we first published the English version, that will be United States in March. Shortly after, we published the Spanish version. It's already translated, but I don't have the release date yet. It's going out pretty soon after, maybe a month or two after.
So I'm guessing Scrum is Scrum, and Scrum is the same in Colombia, in England, and America. Scrum, regardless of the location, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Scrum. That's the way it should be, right?
Yes. So what's your goal for your book?
So I wanted to give let me take one step back. So a thing that we see a lot is that people, the further they are away from Jeff Sutherland, the higher is the likelihood that they start to deviate in Scrum. And for example, nowadays there are lots of people talking about team happiness, which is important, but they forget sometimes that Jeff actually invented Scrum to be more productive, to produce more value faster. That was the reason he created it. And so we wanted a book that helps people in the how part, how to do that, but as true Scrum as possible, like as close to original Scrum idea as possible, so that actually works. Because we have seen these 300, 400, 500% improvements, and when people say we shouldn't talk about that and Scrum is not about that, well, if you ask the person that invented Scrum, he will tell you Scrum is exactly about that.
I mean, I would think, I don't know much of Scrum, but what you're talking about, it's like it's used to improve processes, which should improve the business, improve numbers. So I'm like, why not talk about it? Why not talk about it if it's doing what it's supposed to do? You should talk about it, I would think.
Yeah, that's correct. Like, so I think it's really easy to say, okay, that doesn't matter. It's not important. It's all about team happiness, etc. Because then you're not accountable for delivering results. So if you talk about that, well, obviously you become accountable for delivering those results, and that's the hard part.
So how y'all publicizing your book? You have a social media plan for it? Or you like pushing out like other tech avenues or something else?
So we have a webpage, yourscrumplaybook.com. So if you want to know more about the book, yourscrumplaybook.com is the place to be. That all goes out, and there are several social media accounts for the book as well. But probably the most central place is yourscrumplaybook.com.
Are you doing any speaking engagements like at tech tech conferences or anything like that to talk about the book?
Oh yeah. So I'm probably going to New York in May to talk at the Open Space and the Global Scrum Gathering a little bit about it. I will also talk at the Scrum Day Colombia in April, the Scrum Day Mexico in May. and several other engagements further down the year.
How old is Scrum? Is this a pretty new concept?
And that's a really good question. I think the answer depends on your reference point. Okay, so the first Scrum guide was published in 2010. So if you use that as a reference point, that's pretty new. But the first time it was mentioned in that business context was a Harvard Business Review article in 1986 by Takeuchi Nonaka. And so if you take that as a reference point, then it's way older. I'll probably use between 93 and 95 when Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber refined their thinking, their way of working, their framework. And I think in 95 they published a paper in a conference. I would use that probably as reference point.
I mean, in the scheme of time, that's still relatively new. I mean, even back to the 80s, that's still pretty new, right?
Oh, it is really new. And what is really new is that we can use that now outside of technology. Like we could do that all the time, but people were thinking about Scrum always only in the technology sector or industry area. And if you think about that, so you have technology and Scrum works really well here, but Scrum also works really well outside of technology. So if you now add all the rest of the world to your possibilities, well, now you have a really big area of impact.
So are there any productivity tools out there that help you do Scrum better that you can recommend?
You mean software tools?
Yeah.
That's a tricky question. Well, there are, but I would like to start like this. So be careful with tools, because at the end, a tool is only a tool. Now, for example, if you buy a Ferrari, but you don't know how to drive, the tool is useless. So you can buy the best tool out there with most functionalities possible, but it won't help you. So before you think about the tool, probably make sure that you don't have problems with Scrum, that your Scrum actually works. And then look for the easiest possible solution to do what you want to do with the tool. So for example, if your only challenge is to have a virtual Scrum board, well, you don't need a complex program like Jira. You can use something like Trello, Meistertask, Planner. There are different options. But then again, if you have to coordinate, I don't know, 100 teams and they're all distributed, well, you probably need something more complex as Jira, for example, which is only one example. But again, like, it's not about the tool. Be careful with the tool.
So let's suppose there's a company out there and they're like, okay, I want to bring in a Scrum person. What do you tell this person to look for when they're hiring a Scrum person?
Okay, so when they hire a Scrum Master, I think that it's really important, in my opinion, that this person has Scrum experience and knowledge. Only one of them is not enough. So if you just did some trainings, so you have theoretical knowledge, it's not enough. And if you just have empirical experience, that's not enough either. So I would say you really want someone that has basically the scars of the war of Scrum. And so you might be able to find this person outside your company, even though it helps to have somebody from the inside if you find these skills, because from the inside they know informal communication ways, etc. Now with the product owner, I think it's a little bit more difficult, because if you want to have a good product owner, you will need a person that not only understands your business, also needs to understand the market, your client, the needs of your client, your competition, the technology. So they need to look at the product from many different angles. And usually it's very difficult to contract that from the outside. So it's probably better to look at people inside your company, and if they're not ready yet, develop them. And it takes a while, for sure. That's not a junior position.
Fabian, so from your point of view, there's a startup out there. What number of employees should the Scrum person be? Like the 4th hire, 3rd hire, 10th hire?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure how to answer that. But that's a pretty good question. So I would say at the end, again, it's about what your startup is about. So hire the people that that are able to build what you want to build. And yeah, maybe you can have someone that at the beginning, when you're really small, 3-4 people that can fulfill both roles. Like that's not ideal. Like ideally you want to have a Scrum Master fully dedicated to a team so you can make sure you actually improve. But I think to give you a really good answer on that, I would have to think about that a little bit. Never get that question. Good question.
No problem. And so kind of follow up a question, what sort of product going to look for in a Scrum person? And you say experience. So let's say there's a person who's just beginning his Scrum career and has no experience, and they look for a job. How they work through getting experience and getting a job? Do they work for free and build a portfolio, or how do you recommend that be done?
Yeah. So well, again, the aim is to get experience, right? And but if you have none, well then you might not get a chance. So what can you do? So what we've seen is one way to do that is you have a junior Scrum Master, but the company puts an experienced coach on the side to help the people to mature in Scrum, or to help the whole team, the Scrum Master and the team, to mature in Scrum. That's an option. Well, you could also try to volunteer. There are many user groups, etc., that also operate with Scrum. You could volunteer, you could practice, you get your experience. So that's another way to do that. There's certainly different ways. And
so you actually live in the country of Colombia, correct?
Correct.
And you do a lot of traveling?
Oh yeah, I'm actually in Boston right now with Jeff Sutherland.
Off the subject a little bit, any traveling hacks you can share?
I mean, any traveling hacks?
Yeah.
So I love the Boeing Dreamliner because it has higher pressure in the cabin. So if you have long haul flights, like try to get this, then you're less exhausted. And the other thing is, if you fly across time zones, adjust your meal plan to the location, like to the times you would eat in the new time zone. I think that helps a lot to get your body adjusted fast.
In Colombia, is that pretty much the same time zone as us in the United States?
That's right now at Eastern Standard Time, yeah.
Okay, so that's not too difficult then, just in Boston.
Oh, that's easier. Yeah, same time zone actually.
How often do you come to the States?
Every few months, pretty frequently actually.
So I'm sure you have a pretty good rate of airline miles then, huh?
Oh yeah, I haven't checked lately, but the last time I was in Colombia was a couple of weeks ago. I was Mexico, Germany, San Salvador, Boston, and from here I go back to Colombia.
So the book you have right now, are you going to do another book to follow up on it, or is this the only one you think you're going to do?
I can't really tell you. I think first I would like to see if the book actually helps people to use Scrum in a better way and to get more productive with Scrum. Probably based on that, I decide what to do in the future in that direction.
Yes. Fabian, can you share your social media for you and your company so people can reach out to you?
Oh yeah, so for a company, it's scrumnetwork.com. And social media is Fabian Schwartz at Twitter, and also Fabian Schwartz LinkedIn.
And for our listeners, we'll have the links to your social media on our show notes, and the show notes are at www.cabinshrblog.com. And also be sure to share the Cabinets HR podcast. So Fabian, let's talk about your company real fast. What is is your company do you teach Scrum to others, or what do you do with your company?
So we teach Scrum, but we also help people with the implementation part. We believe so that Scrum works. You obviously first you have to understand it. So that's why we teach it. But also you have to apply it a couple of times, and you will make mistakes. And so it helps a lot to have a coach on your side that helps you to cut the learning curve. So we do these two things. We teach companies Scrum, and we help them in the implementation part with coaching.
So let's say there's a company out there, they see this video or this podcast, and like, I want to hire Fabian. How will they go about doing that? Or can they do that?
Yeah, sure, they can do that. They can go to scrumnetwork.com and contact us, and we certainly can help them.
And I'm sure, you also have to qualify your customers. What would make what would make you disqualify a potential customer? Like, you know what, they're not going to do what I want them to do. They're not serious about this, and this would be wasting my time. I would just be taking their money.
So there's one situation where it can get complicated. So like people want to use Scrum to become more agile. Okay. So I have to give a word of warning. Scrum itself won't make you agile. Scrum will show you where you're not. And these things, these problems you will face in the beginning, which you certainly will, we call them impediments. So the client should be committed to fix those impediments. If there's no intention on fixing those impediments, they just want to use Scrum and then keep going as they're going, there's very low likelihood that they actually become agile. So if for example, if somebody comes and says we wanna complete agile transformation, we have 3 weeks, well, there's no way that that's going to work.
For Scrum, does it matter what the tech stack is? Does it have to be like a new updated tech stack, or does the tech stack really matter when it comes to Scrum?
Tech stack in what sense?
Like, like suppose, is it like Ruby on Rails better than Python? Is it better than C#? Does that matter?
The language. No, I think you can use the language you use. At the end, it's another tool. So the team should decide which tool they're going to use. So if they work Ruby on Rails, great. If they work Python, great. If they use Smalltalk, great. So
let's say you're on a team or product team, and you're the Scrum master. In your mind, what would determine success to you? Like, how can you tell us, you know what, we did a sprint and this was successful versus this wasn't successful?
So there are several things. One would be that we actually produced value, so that at the end of the sprint, we have something the client can actually use, and that creates value for the client. I think many people would agree with that. But I also think if you get the team predictable, that's also successful. So if you are able at the beginning of the sprint to tell what you have at the end of the sprint, and you actually have it, that there's also value in that. So Jeff always says at the beginning, you have to try to get teams stable, then you get them predictable, and then you improve them. So at the end, it's all about value, and my opinion also about being more predictable.
Fabian, what is the startup and tech scene like in Colombia?
So we have Medellin. That's a very innovative city. There's lots of movement going on. One of our biggest unicorn startups is called Rappi. It's basically a delivery service that's now all over Latin America. I'm not sure if that's reached the US yet. So it's growing. It's interesting. I think it's continuous. Will continuously grow.
So is Medellin like the Silicon Valley of Colombia then?
I would say it's probably the part of Colombia where the startup scene is concentrated.
Yes. So Fabian, we're coming to the end of our talk. Can you give us any advice or wisdom on anything you want to talk about?
So I think basically recommendation on Scrum, like don't try to be too fast. Just practice the basic rules, but really do it according to the book before you start experimenting with adjustments.
Yes. Fabian, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. You're doing a lot of great things for a lot of people.
Hey, thanks, Jason, for inviting me.
And to listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.